Hello my dear subscribers, I'm pleased to welcome you to my YouTube channel dedicated to author stories. Enjoy listening.
Evening, which had started so long ago, had already dissolved into the night, and regular people were now fast asleep in the midst of their 10th dream. But that's out there, beyond the windows. In the maternity ward, there is no such thing as day or night. Midwives know this well, and so do the laboring women. And what's remarkable is that no one complains about this routine. "Come on, darling, one more time," said Mrs. Alba gently. The young woman exhaled through clenched teeth, her reddish strands sticking to her sweaty forehead. "You're doing great, everything's going perfectly," encouraged the midwife. "Now the contraction is coming, push with all your might, okay?" The laboring woman weakly smiled. I'll try, she bit her lip. "Push, push. Good job. That's it. A little bit more. There you go." The baby slipped into Mrs. Alba's warm hands and immediately let out a loud cry. "Oh my. What a loud little boy," the woman smiled and thought, as she had thousands of times before, that each baby she delivered, and there had been many over her 40 years as a midwife, became just a little bit like her own, as though she had just given birth to them along with their mothers. "Wow, such a strong voice. A true little man we have here, huh? Let's see." She looked into the tiny face and suddenly turned pale and staggered, almost falling. "Agnes," she called for the young nurse, "take the baby, something's wrong with me." The girl quickly took the crying baby from her and laid him on the mother's belly. The red-haired woman breathed a sigh of relief and placed both hands on the baby's back. He was so small that she could almost hide him with her palms. "Hello, my little one," she whispered. "Mark, my sunshine. Welcome." Mrs. Alba quickly crossed the floor of the maternity department, turned to the stairs, and only there, leaning her forehead against the railing, burst into tears. "Alba, Alba, what's wrong?" Someone shook her shoulders, calling her name again and again, but she didn't recognize the voice and didn't try to figure out who it was. The tears that had been suppressed and hidden for 5 years now burst out, and there was nothing to stop the flow, and perhaps there was no need. The same hand somehow helped her to get up from the steps and then pushed her to walk down the hallway. "It's just your exhaustion, Alba," a female voice sounded as if from afar. "Don't worry, you'll rest with me now, take 5 drops, and then go home and get some sleep. I'll accompany you. You don't take care of yourself, Alba, and it's a shame. You can't work so hard, you're not a horse." Some door slammed, and then bright light hit her eyes. Restless hands nudged her forward, and Alba collapsed into a soft chair. "There, sit down, Alba. Now we'll rest." What happened? Only now did the midwife realize that she was sitting in the head nurse's office, and she herself stood opposite, looking at her with a worried, gentle gaze and asking questions. How to answer them? "It's Ethan," Mrs. Alba said without explanations. "My Ethan was born." And seeing that the head nurse didn't understand her, she began to tell her. "No, it can't be, Alba." The head nurse took a half-empty bottle of brandy from the table, poured it generously into a glass, and pushed it toward the midwife. "Drink it down like medicine. It's the end of the shift anyway, so even if it gives you a headache, lie down on the couch here and sleep, even until morning. I'll leave the keys." She tried to talk about everything and anything, just to calm down the sobbing midwife. But Alba stubbornly shook her head, and she tied knots on her handkerchief, then untied them again, with increasing intensity. "Drink," the head nurse almost shouted. She took the glass herself and held it to Alba's lips. Come on, open your mouth. Swallow. The midwife managed to take a big gulp and immediately closed her eyes. Chase it with water. And at once, they handed her a big ceramic mug. Drink. Alba obediently took a sip, and it became easier to breathe. The head nurse looked at her with doubt. Mrs. Alba was simply an excellent midwife. There's nothing to say about that. Nowadays, there are no more like her. They don't make them like that anymore, that's for sure. But, of course, there comes a time in life when others, of course, sometimes work longer, but everyone has their own limit. Maybe send her on vacation? Maybe you should rest for a couple of weeks. The head nurse voiced the thought that had just come to her mind. You're exhausted, Alba. Look, you're imagining things from fatigue. I'm telling you this as a specialist. You don't get any rest, working every day. Shift after shift. That's why. You think I've gone crazy? Alba raised her eyes. Maybe it's because of your age or fatigue. I'm telling you, it's not my imagination. Yes, what do you think? A mother wouldn't recognize her own child. Come on, Sophia, it can't be. What mother, Alba? The head nurse almost shouted. What child? His mother is in the ward, recovering from childbirth. You're the one who delivered the baby. Alba, get a hold of yourself, for God's sake. You don't even know what you're talking about. It's Ethan, the midwife firmly said. My grandson was born, Sophia. I'm not a fool. I wouldn't mistake Ethan for someone else. And this little boy is a spitting image of Ethan. And where's your Ethan? The head nurse cautiously asked. She knew the midwife's history. Alba's only son, Ethan, left for the city 5 years ago, and no one has seen him since. Alba initially involved the police, wanting to at least retrieve her son's body and give him a proper burial. But neither Ethan nor his body was ever found. After the prescribed period, Ethan was officially declared dead, and they issued some certificate to his mother, which almost drove Alba crazy. She had no one else, no husband, no kitten, no puppy. Her whole life revolved around work and her son, nothing more. And now, half of her life had just vanished. Back then, everyone had to help her get through it. The head nurse dragged Alba to work, reassuring her that the young staff in the maternity ward was utterly clueless. They didn't know simple things, couldn't handle the basics. They couldn't manage without experienced senior colleagues. And on the rare weekends when they managed to persuade Alba to go home and get some rest, neighbors took turns visiting her. They sat with her from morning till late in the evening, entertaining her with conversation, helping around the house where needed. It seemed like they pulled her through. But there you go. Looks like Mrs. Alba went crazy. What a disaster. You haven't seen Ethan yourself for a long time, have you? Hate to remind you of the bad, Alba, but he's officially declared dead, the midwife remarked. I remember, no need to remind me, Alba replied. So, you remember that? Then where did this boy come from? The midwife smiled serenely and shrugged her shoulders. But no one saw Ethan dead, did they? The redhead woman slept, her little son was calm, not noisy at all. Let her be happy. Other kids put on such concerts that moms have no time to catch their breath, but this one is quiet, lucky her. The young woman woke up as if feeling their gaze on her. Her eyelids trembled, and then her big gray eyes opened wide. Hello. What's your name? The head nurse asked. Alice. And him, she pointed to her son, is Mark. Mark, huh? Sophia nodded. I'm Sophia. Well, Alice, the delivery went well. You're recovering very quickly. You'll be ready for discharge soon. Will your husband pick you up? The woman looked closely at the head nurse, then lowered her eyes. No, not my husband. I'm not married. But the baby's father is there, right? Sophia said, internally cringing at her own tactlessness. If it were up to her, she would never pry into someone's soul. But Alba was convinced, as though crazy, that tiny Mark was Ethan's son, and that's that. And in this situation, whether she liked it or not, there was only one way out, to present the real father of the baby to her, otherwise, it might not be far from the mental institution. There is, of course, Alice reluctantly replied. Just don't ask me about him, I don't know who he is. How is that possible? The head nurse was surprised. Over her lifetime, she had seen many women, and they were all different: quiet housewives, faithful wives, shrewd businesswomen who stopped believing in love a long time ago, and single mothers who became such out of great love that ended in great disappointment. Well, and party girls, how could they not be there? She had seen quite a few of them too, and knew how to tell them apart without error. So, Alice was definitely not from the latter group. It turned out stupid, the new mother admitted. That time, I did well in my exams, all A's. We decided to celebrate with friends. There was a whole group of us. Well, we had a bit too much to drink, of course, went a little overboard with the celebrating. I got really drunk, fell asleep. I went home in the morning, and then 2 weeks later. Everything according to the standard procedure, in general, the delay, the test, 2 lines. I didn't want to have an abortion, I'm afraid of those things. Plus, I felt sorry for the little one, he's not to blame for any of this. And where will you go now with the baby? I don't know. I'll probably go back home to my parents for now, and then we'll see. Maybe I'll find a job, even if it's part-time or shift work. I need money. I see, Sophia sighed. Well, Alice, don't lose heart, everything happens in life. God willing, you'll make it through. As Mark grows, he'll become your support. You'll find a job, learn to earn money, and maybe you'll even get married one day. Well, I'll go now, rest, girl, or later you won't have time, colic, teething. As she left Alice's room, Sophia felt like a brazen thief who had just stolen someone else's secret. Well, what did I tell you, Alba? Sophia said. After work, she didn't go home immediately, even though it had been a crazy day. However, passing by Alba's house, she noticed lights in the windows and decided to stop by. They opened the door right away, and the head nurse realized she made the right decision to come in. Look, Alba can't sleep, probably tormented by thoughts of her son. I found out everything. Alice is the baby's mother. She told me everything in detail. She says she doesn't know the baby's father. She got carried away during the end of semester celebration. There were many of them. She went to bed and woke up pregnant. So, she's lying, Alba dryly remarked. She's lying, the head nurse agreed. I can see she's lying, but how do we find out the truth? Well, Alba, it can't be true. Ethan, your son. I know it's painful, but he is alive. Yes, I know that now. I'm sure of it, and don't try to convince me otherwise. Want some tea? No, I had some at work. Sophia waved her hand. She felt like crying. Alba was the best midwife, almost like a friend. It was unbearable to see her losing her sanity and refusing to understand anything. All right, she said decisively. We'll discharge Alice and the baby the day after tomorrow. I'll keep an eye on them. Let's go in my car and follow them. But promise me, if we don't find any sign of Ethan, you'll forget about this story forever. Promise, Alba, because why? Because I'm worried about you, the head nurse simply concluded. As Alice walked out of the maternity ward, she looked pensive, tightly holding little Mark. She stood there, looking around as if confirming that spring hadn't gone anywhere. There it was, all around her, with its sunshine, puddles, buds swelling on the branches warmed by the sun. And she started walking slowly towards the bus stop. You know, Alba said thoughtfully, watching the girl. I feel sorry for her. Not in general, but specifically. What do you mean? Sophia drove slowly behind Alice, trying to keep a safe distance. That's why the little silver car seemed to be crawling awkwardly and lazily through the spring mud. Either it didn't have enough speed, or it was heating up in the sun. I mean, all my life, I was afraid that Ethan would fall for some rich girl, and she would break his heart and then replace him with someone of equal status, you know? After all, they want to marry for money. But when I look at Alice, she seems like a normal girl. You can see she's normal. Quiet, not arrogant. She's not even wearing makeup, and no one came in limousines for her here. And there were no gifts for her in the hospital. Apparently, her parents are far away. Or maybe they work a lot, so no one can take care of her. And now, what if I never meet her son? He would already be going to kindergarten. Well, or I would have taken care of him as a nanny. The head nurse glanced cautiously at Alba. Here she goes again, preoccupied with her thoughts. They had to come up with something, distract her, change the subject. Alice quietly got on the bus and settled by the window with little Mark. Well, at least they're not standing, Alba sighed. Oh, Ethan. Where were you looking? Alba? Sophia asked, hoping to divert her friend from this crazy train of thought. Why were you afraid that Ethan would fall for a rich girl? Didn't he like ordinary girls? Yes, it was just me, Alba frowned. And it immediately became clear that this topic was unpleasant for her. But she wanted to talk about it very much, so she continued, trying to keep it brief and dry. I had one boyfriend in my youth. He courted me for a long time, in a beautiful way. Gave me flowers every day, recited poems. I held out for a long time. But then 1 week passed, another, and he was nowhere to be found. My heart was bleeding, I loved him so much. But I wanted to appear proud, so I cried every night in secret. Then he came back, and, of course, I instantly blossomed like a fool. Crying, hugging him, couldn't let go of his hands. That's when he told me the whole truth, and just like that, my hands let go. What truth? Sophia smiled. So, he listened to his dad? Didn't argue? Arthur? Yes, what kind of arguer was he? A homebody, quiet. He played chess well. We cried together, and then he left. Well, that was it, it hurt. If I had stopped loving him, maybe it wouldn't have been so painful. But here, he just listened to his father. And Ethan? Is he Arthur's son? No, Alba shook her head and fell silent for a long time. Apparently, the memory of Ethan's father wasn't a pleasant one. That's why I was afraid that it would be the same with Ethan, she resumed. I didn't want that for him, you know? I understand. Sophia couldn't take her eyes off the bus stop. What silly things ruin people's lives. Some father with his paternal decree, and now young love collapsed. And it's such a pity, heartbreaking. That boy Arthur, or whatever his name was, he might have been a good guy, not mean. He's just a kid, still inexperienced. If he were older, more experienced, maybe he would have stayed with Alba. And his father would have forgiven him in time. Where else could he go? But now, Arthur cried it out, and Alba ended up without a man for her whole life, work and her son. What's not to understand? Look. Alice got off the bus last, gently rocking Mark as she walked. Perhaps the little one was already hungry. I see, for some reason, Alba whispered back. Let's follow her, but slowly. The girl walked confidently straight to a newly built house. It was a wealthy home, clearly not for everyone. It was a status house, where the apartments cost a fortune because they weren't for living but for showing off to make people envy you. Is that where her parents live? Sophia whistled. Wow. An interesting story unfolds here. The girl's parents are not poor, but she gave birth in a small-town maternity ward. And look, she even takes the bus home. Strange. Why don't they love their own blood? Perhaps they're vacationing in resorts, Alba grumbled. They don't care about their daughter or grandson. Inhumane. Meanwhile, Alice took out her keys from her pocket and entered the entrance. Now what? The head nurse asked, bewildered. We have to turn back. We didn't meet anyone. Shall we go? Deep down, she was relieved that this madness with Alba might end right here and now with a real chance. They would return home, and finally, Alba would get some rest. And in the morning, she would come to work, and everything would be normal. Pregnant women, newborn babies, smiles, and tea breaks. Alba would get distracted, and that would help her get back on track. In a month, she would probably forget about the redhead Alice and her baby Mark. Shall we go? SHH. Alba raised her hand, pressing her index finger to her lips. Quiet, Sophia, for God's sake. Her face turned pale, and she seemed frozen for one long, infinitely long moment. The head nurse followed her gaze. The entrance that Alice had entered a few minutes ago swung open again. A young man stepped outside, of average height and well-built. How old was he? 25? 30? Sophia shook her head, dismissing these pointless calculations. The important thing was that anyone with half a brain could tell that this young man was undoubtedly Alba's relative. And not a distant one. Ethan. Alba flung open the car door so abruptly that the head nurse got scared she might break it. But the door survived. Alba was already running towards her son. Ethan, Ethan. They almost collided with each other, and Sophia squeezed her eyes shut for a moment. What if Alba really went mad? And what if this Ethan, who wasn't Ethan at all but some Miguel, would push away the crazy old woman? Or if it is Ethan, what if he doesn't want to recognize her? He'll look at her coldly and say through his teeth, "Lady, I don't know you." Then what to do with Alba? They shouldn't have come here, or they should have come alone without her. Oh, my God. She cautiously opened her eyes, and it felt like a mountain lifted off her soul. Ethan was hugging his mother, kissing her gray head, and it seemed like he was even crying. Forgive me, Mom, I couldn't tell you everything. He sat on the back seat of the car, not letting go of his mother's hand. But you could abandon your mother for 5 years, huh? Sophia snorted. That's how life turned out, he said sadly. Mom, you were always afraid that I would fall in love with a girl from a wealthy family. And that's exactly what happened with Alice. She's good, Mom, she recognized you right away, that's why she lied so much, just so you wouldn't suspect anything. She didn't plan to give birth at your hospital, but she got stuck on the road, and contractions started. The ambulance brought her to the nearest maternity ward, and it happened to be yours. She called me and told me not to pick her up. Why didn't you let us know about yourself? Alba asked, caressing her son's hand. She wasn't angry with him. How could anything matter when he was here? Her Ethan, her unruly beloved. Such a fool. I was thinking about how to introduce you to Alice, hoping you would see her and like her. How can you not like her, Mom? You saw her, right? I came up with a whole plan back then. But one day, Arthur, Alice's father, asked me to come to his office to fetch a book for him. He was a scientist, always with his books. So, I went. And I saw something in her father's place, your picture, Mom, in a round frame, already quite old. I asked him, where did you get Mom's photo? And he frowned, fell silent. Then he asked, is this really your mother? Alba? So Arthur told me everything, that you were his first love, but it didn't work out. His father forbade him to date you, and they broke up. He told me how you cried, all the details. And I couldn't forget you. He regretted being cowardly back then. He didn't want to upset his father, who was already old. And then, I understood everything at once. Why you hated the wealthy, and I understood that you would never accept my Alice if you found out whose daughter she was. Alice said, a mother is worth more. There are many girls, but you only have one mother. And I lost my mind. I felt I couldn't live without you. And I still can't. That's when I ran away to the city, changed my name. Sometimes, I only came to your house at night, just to watch. Forgive me, Mom. You idiot. Alba couldn't hold back. Love, huh? Love, Ethan nodded. Now we have a son, Mom. Your grandson. Shall we go to my place? Have some tea and meet Alice again? She's practically family. Come on, Mom. You little rascal. Alba sobbed. Let's go, but we're not strangers.